Disclaimer. This content is created based on my unprofessional opinion and analysis of related topics for social communication purposes, to expand our mutual views by discussing and analyzing the matters. The source of information and evidence for this content is social media, which contains facts, rumors, and some other fragments without proof for their authenticity or accuracy. So, please pay special attention. There is no claim on the reliability and confirmation of the conclusions presented here.
Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well and Happy New Year. Well, I'm back to Idaho for again. In this fragment, I want to present my conclusion of this case. It's a great honor to have your companionship with me now. Let's get into it. During these 2 years, there have been various theories and speculations about the motive of this incident, and different theories around it, ranging from emotional motives to Mexican cartel involvement, or sending a signal to some victims' parents. In my opinion, this incident might have happened over narcotic matter, but not as large scale as being connected to something like Mexican cartels or other major organizations, but on a scale that many students try to improve their financial situation through the opportunity of college time. So, not only does it seem to me the incident had been completely internal and localized, but also, in my opinion, the rumors that relate this incident to more complicated interactions could have been deliberately spread to shape the public's mind to believe that the case is too complex to be solved and to prepare the public's mind for accepting an unfinished resolution to it. I think the victims and the killers must have had involvement in narcotics like meth pills as dealers. Even by looking at the girls' majors at the university, we can see all three were interested in marketing, trade, and business. So it could have been a chance for them as goal-oriented individuals to focus on the financial aspect of this deal. Therefore, to me, the murder must have happened over substances. Knowing some information like Kaylee had been reluctant to go back to 1122 King Road, she had planned to move to Austin for a new job, and more important factor, her behavior at the grub truck. I think she might have been on the verge of a critical change in her social life, which could have the risk of not sitting well with some individuals for her. I see her in the footage as if she didn't feel very comfortable among the students and acted relatively like a stranger. Most of the time, she was pretending to be busy with texting, but to me, it was the way to avoid eye contact with them. Please pay attention to the scene where this girl came to Kaylee and said something about this guy in her ears, which caused Kaylee to become curious about him, and at the same time feel uneasy, and consequently caused her to avoid eye contact with him the whole time there. The uneasiness she felt in his presence was so overwhelming that it led her to display certain behaviors that caught my attention. Like in this moment, the instant her gaze met his, she turned her head away in fear. Also, in this fragment, I think the guy himself knew she had been uncomfortable or afraid. And by this gesture, he seemed to be trying to provoke a reaction from her and interrupt her active texting. Another moment that grabbed my attention was when, after Kaylee had possibly told something about him, Maddie told him "F you" in a drunken state, and not to the hoodie guy. Even when she directed that insult at him, the hoodie guy looked at him to see his reaction to what she had said, but still Kaylee controlled herself not to glimpse him. The last move Kaylee made to avoid having eye contact with him was when Maddie wanted to grab the food, and Kaylee got ready to act like she was recording Maddie. But I think it was her tactic to act busy with recording again to avoid any eye contact with him. However, it seemed they ditched the hoodie guy, but I think they did this because the hoodie guy was standing by him, so she didn't want to turn back to face him. In my opinion, Kaylee had something to worry about, or maybe she was up to something that could be a concern for her. I think the tension between the killers and the victims that led to the murder must have arisen over a matter of dealing narcotics or any substances. It might have been possible the killers thought that the victims, especially Kaylee and Maddie, wanted to keep a part of the substances for themselves and not return it. I think so because of the damage that occurred to the wall in Maddie's room, or even it is possible occurred in other places in the house too. The suspicion that Kaylee and Maddie didn't want to return a portion of the drugs and intended to keep it for themselves might have stemmed from Maddie's conversation with Adam at the corner club. Consequently, the reason J.S. told them, "They gonna get you for this, Maddie," could have been related to this point too. Perhaps part of that 8-hour delay could have been for the killers who were searching for the victims' rooms and properties. Do you remember this note from the MPD? Please pay attention to the content written in the colored box, which says,
"We remain consistent in our belief that this was a targeted attack, but investigators have not concluded if the target was the residents or if it was the occupants."
Why residents? Why would anyone attack a student residence? What could possibly make such a place important enough to be targeted? Why should there even be a suspicion that a student residence could become a target? In the simple, temporary life of a student, away from family and living in a modest, temporary residence, what could be so valuable that it would attract such attention or be targeted? Isn't it the damage to the residence that has left investigators uncertain about whether the target was the residence itself or the people living in it? Moreover, the same damages might have been the reason why they decided to demolish the house, so as not to let jury members become suspicious about them later. However, it was claimed that demolishing was done because of the unsafety due to the use of hazardous materials used in the forensic process or investigations. If so, it shows that the MPD, LE, and the University of Idaho are trying to hide something and not let the truth of the murder and the identities of the murderers be revealed. But why? My conclusion returns to this why and otherwise for all the manipulations and contradictions applied to this case by the prosecutions, and every attempt made through the mainstream to fabricate a version of the narrative based on what they want. So, my conclusion is that it indicates the university could have been indirectly involved in drug dealings. In such a theory, it makes sense how some individuals should have had the audacity to kill 4 persons in one place, and at the same time without being concerned about the risk. They must have had confidence in not being arrested or identified. Thus, it means some individuals at the university must have been the invisible party in dealing drugs. Or better to say, drugs could be a source of income for the university. The murderers could have been the middle party between the university and the involved students, who in case of any threat to their network are responsible for eliminating the danger or removing the scheming opportunist and greedy student. In return, the invisible big bosses, who are the owners of the narcotic substances, are responsible for protecting them by any manipulation to keep them out of justice reach. The involvement of some university authorities in drug dealing could be a plausible reason why Brian, as a criminology PhD student who must have been informed and motivated by Brent Kapaka, had taken them under observation. Consequently, the university framed him through its influence within the MPD and accused him of murder. Now let's take a look at the moment they were searching his apartment.
Fancy computer.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, fuck yes. They were so happy about this computer.
That I wasn't expecting.
That I wasn't expecting. That's now he's going to be all over that.
Mallory's going to be all over that.
Maury's going to be all over that. Maury's ass is all over the internet right now because Maury is just, that's what he says right there. Maury is going to be all over that.
He was told he could do a retreat here. And once he packaged, he can't do anything until we get a warrant night. Correct.
So hold on right there. Let's just
See, are there lights on in there?
There are some, yeah. We can turn them all on. Very sparse. Fancy computer.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, fuck. that, I mean, that's Maori's going to be all over that. So
Fancy-
he was told.
Why did they say he's going to be all over that? Did you see what News Nation did here? I want to show you guys this. News Nation puts he's going to be all over that. No, he says Maori is going to be all over that. News Nation is the one that's typing this up top. Okay, like the writing. And News Nation decides we're not going to put the word Maori. We're going to put the word he is going to be all over that. Why?
Dear Lana, based on my theory, not only does it explain why they were so happy about finding Brian's laptop, but it also clarifies the reason behind your question regarding the switching of the name Mari with the pronoun he on News Nation. In my opinion, they searched his residence and properties, especially his computer and cell phone, not because they knew him as an incel, but through searching his computer or electronic devices, they wanted to know how long it was that Brian had been aware of the university's drug dealing and how much he had known about it, and many other things in this regards. So, it's obvious that they would be happy. To me, the reason that News Nation changed the name of a person with a pronoun must have been to limit the public's knowledge about whatever related to the case as little as it had been possible. They could exploit Brent Kapaka's mental issue as an excuse to remove him and search his residence, but they had to use another strategy to remove Brian. So, they exploit Brian's academic background as a tool to fill in the blanks of their fabricated, contradicted narrative and the lack of evidence, claiming that he used his knowledge, expertise, and skills to cover his tracks and leave no evidence behind deliberately. However, this matter could be applied to themselves. How can we be sure that, for example, an FBI agent, whether retired or in active service, isn't using their expertise or background to fabricate evidence against someone? Who knows? How could we be sure? In my opinion, whatever was done by the mainstream media's biased hosts and guests, and any narrative they had spread to paint Brian as the killer, is for the university to cover up being involved in drug dealings. This is why this case is saturated in many contradictions, manipulations, and conspiracies. The university acts as an oil well for this town. In other words, it has become the backbone of the town's economic prosperities. Therefore, if it comes to light that the university is also involved in such illegal activities, it would lead to the drying up of this oil well. That's why the MPD, the prosecutions, went above and beyond to accuse Brian Koberger of the murder, not to give him the chance to reveal their illegal secrets. Kudos to Judge John Judge, who withdrew the case in favor of truth and justice, knowing there wouldn't be any fair trial for this case in Moscow. Not everyone possesses the courage and wisdom to understand in some situations, boldness and humanity need to stand still rather than rushing down the wrong path. I think many of you agree that recently we have experienced sleepless nights due to a judgment which was a blatant example of injustice. There is a statement to the sound of, "If you are not brave enough to stand by the oppressed, at least be human enough not to cheer for the oppressor." Now, if I were to summarize my conclusion briefly, it would be this. The university is essentially a supplier and seller of narcotics to students. In fact, the students are the distributors of the drugs for the university. Some of them, as the middle party, are trusted by the university and are privy to its affairs. But the students at the lower level may have no idea about it and only know the middle party as their suppliers. Considering that Bill Thompson requested huge financial support from the state in the early stages of this case and didn't have to provide the state any explanation for that amount of money, therefore, I believe the university's drug dealings are a state-level issue, implicating that the state is also involved in this kind of trade. Now, if my theory is correct and the state and the university share common interests in this matter, then there will be a very important question, which is, regarding the fact that Boise, as well as Moscow, is a part of the state of Idaho, can we trust justice for Brian and the 4 victims to be served in Boise, and Brian could have a fair trial at the end? Could it be possible that Judge Hippler's handling of the defense motions and all the sealings in this regard is driven by the same intent as Bill Thompson's approach in the Idaho courtroom, where his welcome to media presence to be banned reflected a desire for secrecy? Could it be possible that again, Brian has been used as a scapegoat here, with his freedom being tied to keeping the university's involvement in drug trafficking concealed? Lastly, I want to emphasize this crucial point that the defense team is not fighting for leniency in sentencing for Brian, but rather to prove his innocence. Well, dear viewers, that was my conclusion to this case. If you found any of it insightful or thought-provoking, please make sure to share it with others. Thank you for watching. See you in my next videos.